Just a very hearty welcome to all of you. Thanks for making the time for participating in this webinar in which we're going to talk a little bit about talent pipeline management as a framework and the TPM Academy experience. We're very excited to kick off this TPM Academy of Southern Virginia with our colleagues from the Institute for Advanced Learning and Research and their partners who have been instrumental in making this TPM Academy happen. And we'll certainly leave plenty of time for questions amongst the group. Just a heads up that this webinar is being recorded and we will post it to our TPM Academy of Southern Virginia website within a business day, in the case that you would like to share it with any of your colleagues who may be interested in learning more about TPM and participating in the TPM Academy. But just by way of introductions, my name is Jamie Francis. I serve as Vice President at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and have the great privilege of overseeing the TPM National Learning Network. So all the folks who go through the TPM Academy, we're now at over 1,200 people, but I am certainly not a team of one. I have an incredible team to work alongside with, including Lexi Archer, who is our project manager for our team, Nikki De Silva, who serves as executive director and helps support not just our implementation efforts across the country, but also our online learning platform, Michael Lewis, who is our community manager and supports all TPM Academy learners, and then Jason Tishko, who helped co-create the TPM framework. So you will get to know my colleagues over these next several months as you engage with us in the TPM Academy, but just wanted you to start to put names with faces. I'd now like to hand it over to Dr. Julie Brown, who has been an awesome person to collaborate with and to connect with, and is really the reason that we're able to host the TPM Academy of Southern Virginia, to talk a little bit about why TPM for the region, as well as the great partners that are on the screen, and I'm sure some folks beyond the screen who have been really helpful in getting this underway. So Julie, with that, I'll hand the mic over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jamie. We are so appreciative of Jamie and this opportunity to partner with the U.S. Chamber Foundation to bring their TPM Academy program. We are looking at this as one part of a broader initiative to think about talent pathways to really support manufacturing broadly across our Go Virginia region, which includes about 15 localities here in Southern Virginia. Again, in thinking about how we address your talent pipeline needs and concerns, we're at a pivotal point in our region where we think, and we are seeing evidence of exponential growth happening in our manufacturing sector. We think that bringing folks together that have similar interests, that we can address some of the challenges, be very efficient in that, and that we can learn from each other by creating a really strong network and helping our manufacturers in the region think about their talent pipeline based on a very structured approach. And again, the Chamber is really going to help us with that structured approach. And learning opportunity as we kind of go through this together. We're in the point now where we just want people to learn about this opportunity. We're in the application window. So in addition today, our ask, and I see our good friend Ann Moore Sparks with the Danville-Pittsylvania County Chamber, is to get the word out about this opportunity across our region. A couple members from the implementation team are on. Tara Napier is on with the South Central Workforce Development Board. And also Kristen is on with the Commonwealth Regional Council. They are our partners in crime as we're trying to make sure everyone across our region hears about this opportunity. And so we're just excited to learn more. So Jamie, thank you. And I'll kick it back. If anyone else would like to talk about, again, kind of the benefits or our why, happy to open the floor.
Thanks so much, Julie, and certainly hope to be able to kind of continue the discussion with the group as a whole in terms of, as you all are digesting the information about what talent pipeline management is and what it intends to do, how you all are thinking about where it can add value to what's happening in Southern Virginia. As Julie said, I have to say you all are not alone in terms of some of the challenges and the opportunities that your region is experiencing, right? With an industry as primed as manufacturing is to have tremendous growth opportunities and to really contribute significantly to your economy. And yet, at the end of the day, employers can't find talent as it is. So when we have these really exciting announcements of new companies coming in or the growth of industry, we can't help but ask the question, where are the workers? How are we going to make sure that, bringing a new company to the area isn't just going to take away workers from all those companies that are already struggling to find employees that they can retain, that have the skills that are necessary to fill those jobs successfully and hopefully advance in their careers. And so what we've found is that the power of collaboration is incredibly important. So I'm going to talk at this front end in terms of, what talent pipeline management is, what it intends to do, what is the process before we talk about the TPM Academy, which is how we facilitate learning of the TPM framework. So consider this like a 3-minute crash course in TPM. And for those of you who participated in the workshop that we hosted in partnership with IALR in December, forgive the repetition, but hopefully it just reinforces what your understanding of the framework is. But at its core, talent pipeline management is a change management framework that's really steeped and based in supply chain management principles. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, we sit as the sister organization of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest business association in the country. And so when we think about, new ideas and opportunities, we're really thinking about it from the lens of business. That's the language that we speak. And many businesses, particularly the manufacturing industry, are familiar with supply chain management principles. That's where TPM, finds its core, is we think about, well, what are the key concepts and principles of supply chain management? Consistent and clear communication, these ideas of shared value. If one member or component of the supply chain breaks down, the whole thing can fall apart. So how are we constantly ensuring shared accountability and keeping one another familiar with the key pieces of information that we need in order to have a very seamless supply chain? So we say, let's take all of those principles that, tend to work well for businesses on a day-to-day operational standpoint and apply it to talent and say to employers, it's up to us, the employer community, to very clearly and consistently communicate, here is what I need, here is where I need it, here is when I need it, and here are the quality standards that I expect for this product to meet. In this context, of course, the product being talent. Now, we always like to very, very quickly disassociate people with the idea that we are suggesting that students and workers are like, product and widgets. And we very clearly want to say that institutions of higher learning or the K-12 school system, we're not likening them to manufacturers and distributors. The key piece here is that it tends to take some light bulb moments for employers to recognize just how important their role in the talent supply chain is. Because in our opinion, they have the very greatest currency in the talent supply chain network. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what that currency is? I already saw Julie mouth it, but
The job. They have the job.
they have the jobs, right? So without the employers being there to provide those signals and those messages of what their expectations are, it's very difficult for a student and worker to have that seamless transition from an education and training experience or opportunity or a work-based learning experience into employment or into career advancement opportunities. So employers are absolutely key in the talent supply chain network, and too often they're being invited to these conversations as contributors to the discussion, but not necessarily leaders of the discussion. And so what ends up happening is that if you look at the third image that you see before you, we send a lot of missed signals, a lot of missed cues out there of what's important and what's relevant for that important currency, the jobs, that tends to send people on indirect pathways to employment or to career advancement opportunities. And so talent pipeline management is all about that consistent and clear feedback loop of what I need, when I need it, where I need it, and what quality standards I expect for it to meet. And the common question that we tend to get with talent pipeline management is, how is this different from any other workforce development approach that our community has tried, and maybe have had even some successes with, but ultimately became like a flash in the pan, or the exciting thing to try out in a given moment, but then fades over time. And we always like to say it's not just one thing that tends to make TPM distinctive for a community. It's a collection of things, but it also might look a little bit different from community to community, and that's okay. It's really meant to meet you all where you're at and to leverage if you do have any existing initiatives that are working well for you. But the thing that I tend to hear from our partners time and time again in terms of what has made a difference for them with their TPM implementation compared to previous approaches or different methodologies that they've tried. The things that tend to be focused on is this authentic employer leadership focus. When we talk about employer-led, we truly mean it. And it doesn't mean that it's employer alone. There are, of course, very critical partners that make up that talent supply chain network. But again, without employers defining the pain point of what's keeping them up at night, and without being the ones who define what success looks like, then we tend to see their engagement wane over time, for all the different reasons that you can imagine. But with talent pipeline management, from day one, we are saying that employers must lead this effort, because that currency of jobs is absolutely crucial, so that we're connecting people to education and training experiences and work-based learning experiences, upskilling and reskilling initiatives that are truly going to make a difference for the student or the worker, the employer, as well as the education and training partner. So that's where that shared value concept certainly comes into play. Another key feature that a lot of folks turn to when they're thinking about talent pipeline management is the role of data. I wouldn't say that we're short of workforce data. And you've got, fantastic organizations out there that are constantly releasing really interesting information about what's happening in the labor market, which industries are most in demand, which jobs are, have the highest number of openings, et cetera. But when it comes to a very targeted approach of creating solutions that are going to keep that, unlock that employer engagement in really meaningful ways and lead to that shared value for all partners, it is so dependent on high quality data coming directly from the employers that are around your table. So this focus on granular and actionable data is one of the key features of talent pipeline management. So those are the things that I would just bring to light. Of course, you can see some of the other distinctive features about talent pipeline management. Happy to answer any questions or provide examples of what these have looked like in implementation. But just as a starting point, I would say authentic employer leadership with a focus on return on investment so that we keep that engagement and sustainability over time, and a focus on primary labor market information coming from employers in a way that helps us target solutions to drive at the pain points that they're experiencing. So we organize ourselves in the TPM methodology around 6 strategies, and this is what we facilitate as part of the TPM Academy experience. You're going to break these down based on a series of simple questions. So in strategy 1, which is organizing for employer leadership and collaboration, we're asking that key question of, what is that pain point that has brought employers to the table? What is keeping them up at night? Is it unfilled job openings for technician roles? Is it retention challenges with mid to senior level machinists? So what is that pain point that we can all find some consensus around? In strategy 2, we're then asking, well, how many of that job is needed? Where are those jobs? And within what time period do we need to fill those jobs or retain those roles? So what do our projections look like? In strategy 3, we're laying in quality. So we then want to ask, what are the essential skills necessary to be successful in that role? And is there an opportunity for us to identify some shared language amongst employers collaborating with one another to describe what's essential in these roles? Maybe even more importantly, how are these roles different from company to company? And how are we communicating that to our education and training partners? So we're taking all this primary labor market information, the super rich employer provided information on the demand side, and we're going to start to bring in the supply side in strategy 4 and ask ourselves, well, where does our current talent supply come from? Are there any untapped sources of talent that we could bring into our talent supply chain network? Because almost always the supply does not quite meet the demand. And so we need to think outside the box of where else might we get talent from. In strategy 5, we're then starting to define, where are we going to start? Are we going to think about this as an internal pipeline solution? So thinking about our existing workforce. Are we going to look externally? So are we more so talking about first-time entry-level hires? Where is the solution creation going to start? Who are going to be the provider partners that we bring to the table to co-design talent supply chain solutions with? What does success look like? How are we going to measure our performance? Are we headed in the right direction as we implement solutions? And what are the incentives that we can all put on the table so that we're all working towards the same goals? In strategy 6, we're looking to the performance measures we identified in strategy 5 and starting to figure out, well, now that we've started implementing solutions, are we on the right track? Or are there opportunities for us to go through a continuous improvement exercise? Is there something that we didn't quite get right the first time out of the bat? Or off the bat. And we're also wanting to know, how can we build resilient talent pipelines so that as a disruption occurs, as a new company comes into town, or perhaps an education training provider closes down, how are we building agile talent solutions and making sure that our partnerships are able to be resilient to any disruptions that may come down the pike? So that can take on many different manifestations, but we added that in as a result of the pandemic. So just want to make sure that there are any, see if there are any questions. Is just to check in at this point, any questions from the group in terms of the talent pipeline management framework. All right, I always wait a customary 7 to 8 seconds, so I will continue, but please feel free to add anything into the chat, and we'll pause a couple of other times just to check in to see how folks are doing. But always like to show this slide just so that folks are aware of TPM's history. This is not something that came about yesterday, but it is still a relatively new initiative. We launched our first white paper in 2014 to make these comparisons to talent supply chain theory to supply chain theory, and made a call to action to say, which groups are willing to undergo a pilot with us to test out these concepts. And what ended up happening was we had 7 business-facing organizations stand up and say that they would be interested in doing so. Julie, let me check in with you.
Just want to double check. Are you showing any slides? I'm not seeing any slides.
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that. Yes, I have been sharing slides, but let me stop. I am so glad that you said something.
Jamie.
Okay.
I could see the slides.
Oh, you can? I could not. Now I can see.
Okay. Well, let's see if I put it into. Is it working for you now, Julie?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry. That may just be a Julie problem. Now I can see them. That's great. Thank you.
No. I'm so glad that you said something. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page. But yes, so in terms of TPM's history, we did have a partnership with the state of Virginia as part of our original pilot. So there is some precedent in Northern Virginia in particular with a technology collaborative that tested out the approach as part of our pilot back in 2015. Since then, we have had other partners in Virginia using the framework, particularly in Hampton Roads area in the maritime industry. We also have folks in the Bay Area around the Chesapeake area that have also used the talent pipeline management framework in healthcare and some other industries. So our hope is certainly to expose you all to members of our growing TPM network, and make sure that you all have those connection points where it will be helpful to your own implementation in your region. But the other thing that I like to call out on this slide is that you'll see in a couple of spaces in which we have released specialty content on special areas. So opportunity populations, how are we expanding the talent pipeline in really meaningful ways for those who have experienced barriers to education and training opportunities or to employment or career advancement. We have thought about this from the context of job quality. So we often hear from our manufacturing collaboratives that job quality is something that they work into their talent pipeline management implementation, because it's an industry that, for one reason or another, has been associated with lower job quality, and we want to make sure that we're being really thoughtful to share that that is not the case, that employers can be very intentional about creating high quality job experiences. We are currently developing specialty course content around apprenticeships. So how can the TPM methodology be leveraged for building either registered or non-registered apprenticeships and other work and learn opportunities? So the network continues to grow, and we continue to improve the resources that we're able to offer, because what's very special about the TPM network is that folks consistently come back to share with us what their implementation experiences are. Here are some of the challenges that we've had. Here's how we've overcome them, so that the network as a whole can continue to get better and better, and create more impact with their talent supply chain solutions. So we're really excited for your region to become a part of that journey. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the TPM Academy experience, but before I do that, again, any questions about the framework? All right. Well, with that, just to talk a little bit about what this looks like in terms of participating in a TPM Academy experience. One of our common TPM catchphrases is "You come for the framework, but you stay for the network." And so, not only will you all create, relationships with those in your learning cohort, but you'll also have access to the broader TPM National Learning Network. So that, certainly includes meeting folks by way of us bringing them in to talk about their own implementation experiences. For those of you that were at the workshop in December, we featured Jackie Rondeau from the Hampton Roads Workforce Council to talk about their maritime collaborative, and we actually just released a case study on them last week, so I'll be sure to share that in the chat before we hop off today. But we'll also want to expose you all to other people and have you connect with them via our National Learning Network LinkedIn group and our Slack channel, so that you can pose questions to one another. We find it really, really helpful to make those connections and relationships. And so we actually recently started a peer mentorship program so that you can sign up to be paired with a peer, maybe from another region, that's using the TPM framework, so that you guys can support one another in your implementation. But that sense of community is a really important element to the TPM Academy experience. But the learnings really are generated through the TPM Academy curriculum, which is it is a customized curriculum built in-house by our team, but one that has gone through many iterations as a result of people's implementation experiences. And again, them sharing firsthand with us what their implementation has looked like, and here's what would have been really helpful to me at that time. And so we've built this curriculum, and now have an online learning component in which folks are able to experience in an interactive way the methodologies and the concepts that make up the TPM framework. So you all will have access to those e-learning modules by participating in this academy. But what the agreement is for this particular academy is that we will not only have the online sessions in terms of a virtual orientation, we're also going to do in-person sessions. And so you'll have instruction from our group at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, but then again, relying on peers that make up the National Learning Network to help support your facilitation and your understanding of the TPM Academy, or excuse me, of the TPM framework. So I already know of a couple of folks that will be participating from the North Carolina Chamber, from the Kentucky Chamber, in facilitating y'all's academies in Virginia. So So really excited to get to meet you in person and have lots of time together to make sure that the TPM concepts are resonating and that you're thinking about that community application aspect. We've also incorporated the Employer Collaborative Project as a part of this academy experience. We have heard time and time again that being able to hypothetically, theoretically, take the TPM framework and apply it to a collaborative, a hypothetical collaborative, as you're learning the TPM framework is really instrumentally helpful once you do get to eventual application. And so you all will be placed in teams with other cohort members to create a hypothetical collaborative and basically apply the TPM framework for the activities that that collaborative is going to go through. So it's theory-based, but it's a great way for you to start to make those connections to eventual application. It's not something that, takes up a tremendous amount of time. We typically assess that it's an additional like 1 to 2 hours per month as you go through the TPM Academy learning experience. And then we do final presentations so that you're able to share with the group and get feedback from our staff and from other TPM Academy faculty members. What does this look like? What are some things to consider as you continue to refine your understanding and your approach of implementation? But we certainly don't say goodbye after your final training is over. There are many continued experiences in terms of engagement and learning with our team and with the National Learning Network. So we'll touch on those again in just a minute or two. But in terms of, I know some folks are very logistically oriented, so let's get to the logistics of specific dates for this cohort. So the application is now available. I will be posting the application website into the chat, and it's in the final slide as well. But the application is available. At most, I think it could take you maybe 30 minutes. We have 3 short answer questions. Most of the time, I think it takes folks closer to 15 to 20 to fill out the information. So it's not a huge time burden, but you do still have a couple of weeks until that application is due. To make it easy on the selection team, I would suggest that you fill it out as soon as you can so that they're not receiving all of the applications on March 28th. But we will kick off with a virtual orientation in April, followed by an in-person facilitation on May 21st and 22nd. The strategies, the doing your homework strategies will take place virtually in June, and then we'll have a little bit of a break before our last in-person session in August. So we've got these paced out in a way so that you can go through the e-learning modules in a healthy pace as you lead up to your in-person or your virtual facilitations with the TPM Academy faculty members. But we're really excited for folks to get to meet in person because we know that can make a big difference in terms of your learning experience and eventual application. But as I mentioned, the TPM Academy is not the end all be all in terms of your engagement with the National Learning Network. We have plenty of opportunities for you to, participate in continued learning, be it enrolling in one of those specialty courses that I mentioned around apprenticeship or public policy, job quality, opportunity populations. One thing that I always like to mention to folks is please go ahead and plan to attend the in-person National Learning Network Summit that takes place at our offices in Washington, D.C. So not too far from you all, but that will be on September 30th and October 1st. We usually get about 140 or so TPM practitioners join us for a 2-day summit that is completely dedicated to talent pipeline management. There is no better in-person experience than coming to the summit. Most of our attendees are returning folks. So they're people who come year after year because they gain so much value from participating, and so much to the fact that they asked us to extend it to 2 days as opposed to a 1-day conference a couple of years ago, and continue to ask us to do so because there's a lot that they want to fit in. We also host quarterly engagement webinars in which we feature TPM partners on specialty topics, or sometimes they're industry based. So everyone who's really engaged in manufacturing collaboratives, we're going to have a couple of our manufacturing host organizations, those that convene the employer collaboratives, talk about what their TPM implementation looks like. That's just an example. The last one, I noticed that we had a couple of workforce Workforce Board colleagues on the call. The last one that we did was with the National Association for Workforce Boards, and some of our Workforce Board conveners talk about how they've leveraged the TPM framework. And this one coming in the spring is going to be talking about the preferred provider relationship, how we work with education and training partners. So lots of topics out there to explore. I hope that we'll get you all engaged in those. We did start to host TPM workshops about 2 or 3 years ago, in which we might focus in on a specific topic like job quality, and we'll host an in-person convening in which we're, working through the learning content that has been created around a specialty topic, but really thinking about, customizing strategy for those individuals who are participating in that workshop. So again, anytime that we can support you all in connecting the theory that you're learning by going through the learning content to what is this going to look like for me, we try to really capitalize on those opportunities because we know that that can be so helpful to our partners. Anytime that we do create specialty learning content, we are relying on TPM practitioners to support the development of that content. And so the apprenticeship, the materials that we're currently putting together, as an example, we've got 6 TPM practitioners who are sitting in on that review committee alongside national subject matter experts, so that our TPM practitioners can offer their, subject matter expertise, but from a localized context. And we find that to be really, really useful and helpful. So you could be, the next subject matter expert on a future specialty course that we put together. And then we have a broad set of leadership opportunities. And so Jackie Rondeau, the colleague that I've mentioned a couple of times from the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, Jackie serves as one of our TPM fellows. Our fellows is a leadership group that, have been champion implementation partners for TPM, but they're also willing to serve as mentors. They're willing to chat with people such as yourselves that are interested in TPM but have not yet started their TPM journey. We also have folks that serve as mentors, so you all will be introduced to mentors who are participating in the Employer Collaborative Project, so that as you're putting together deliverables for that project, you're able to, before you submit, first share them with a mentor who has, been through the process, who has maybe even had firsthand implementation experience, so that they can offer, hey, here's what it looks like in reality, or here's some things to consider based on, what we may have experienced in our region when we got to projecting critical job demand. So lots of opportunities to expose you guys to our growing TPM National Learning Network. Again, let me stop there before I talk about the online learning platform very briefly, just to check in to see if there are any questions in terms of engagement experiences. Okay. Hearing none, so anybody who participates in this TPM Academy is going to be given a TPM Collab profile. So TPM Collab is our online learning community. It's where we host our e-learning modules, which all participants will have access to, and it is chock full of resources to help support not just your understanding of the TPM framework, but your eventual implementation. So that includes resources like our action plans. So in every single strategy, we have activities, milestones, intended outputs for every functionality, methodology, concept associated with TPM, just to help guide you that as you start to think about what this is going to look like in community, you feel as if you have an arsenal of tools in your toolbox to help with those implementation experiences. The e-learning modules are meant to be interactive, and they're meant to help prepare you so that when we do come together in person, or for you're doing your homework phase facilitation, that you all can enter into those discussions, ready with questions and participating in a deep and meaningful way, so that you get the most out of the learning experience. So as soon as you are admitted into the TPM Academy, you will have that profile created created so that you can begin your e-learning experiences as soon as you would like. But it's really meant to help reinforce these concepts and help familiarize you with the TPM framework as you prepare for the in-person sessions. We also will have you all take a summative assessment at the end of your training experience so that you can earn your TPM Talent Supply Chain Manager badge. This is a digital badge that we give to folks that successfully earn 80% or more on a 28 question summative assessment. We're really excited to see more and more of our partners, post this on their LinkedIn pages and have it be a valued credential in the workforce development ecosystem. And then as you continue to enhance your understanding of TPM, your participation in specialty courses, for instance, to earn additional badges as well. We do now have what's called our TPM peer review process, so that if you have implementation experience, you can submit a portfolio of your TPM activities to be evaluated by peer TPM practitioners who would then give you an advanced credential of a verified TPM talent supply chain manager. So not just one who knows the theory, but who has demonstrated the competencies associated with success, not even necessarily successful implementation, but thorough implementation of the TPM framework. So I'll now just spend a couple of minutes, talking about the application and what you all should look out for. And all of this information, as we said, is on the TPM Academy of Southern Virginia webpage. So I'll post that again. But what we're looking for in terms of participation is just a full ability to commit yourself to the training experiences. And so we know how busy folks are. It's very, very difficult to, be able to dedicate our attention full on to any one endeavor at any given point in time. But we truly want you to get the most value out of this experience. And so, we have lots of folks ask us, if I know I'm not going to be able to, commit to the entire training experience, it could be that, now is not the time for you to do that. And you may want to engage in one of our on-demand learning experiences. But I cannot tell you how many of our partners who have been through an in-person training experience have really emphasized how much value they get out of that in-person time and the ability to collaborate with your peers. So really, really encourage you, especially because this is something that is funded, and therefore you would not have to pay tuition the way that you would if you do go the on-demand route. So really encourage you to think about committing to this training experience. And the team has, supplied us with, who are kind of that intended primary audience that they would like to participate. Julie, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to say about what you all are really looking for in terms of your targeted audience.
Sure. So with the funding that we've received from Go Virginia, this Talent Pathways Initiative is focusing on manufacturing broadly across our region. We do also anticipate that there'll be a handful of healthcare employers that will participate. And we absolutely want to also create space for some of our education and business partners, those organizations that provide business services and support businesses in our community. We want to make sure there's good geographic representation. So again, asking for some of you on this webinar to serve as ambassadors and spreading the word about this opportunity. And again, we are very grateful for the funding that we've received from Go Virginia to offer this in the region in a hybrid format. So that our business partners can attend for free. So excited about this opportunity.
Yeah, a huge thanks for that contribution, because we know that it can be really difficult for folks to commit funding to training experiences and workforce development, professionalization. So a huge thanks to you guys for securing that funding and for allowing for folks to participate at no cost, because normally it is for in-person academies, it is a $3,000 tuition charge. So in terms of, the number of the cohort can be as high as 35 folks. So we highly encourage you to spread the word far and wide, as Julie said. said, looking for some differentiation and regional representation. We know you guys have several counties that make up your region, so would love to have representation from all of them. The group will be looking to see, what is the organization that is applying, what is their opportunity to contribute to overcoming the skills gap challenge. It always helps to have a little bit of an understanding of the TPM framework as you're filling out your application, just to demonstrate that you will get value out of the training experience. But one thing that we always, really like to share is focusing on action, right? Like, what is this going to look like? How are you going to make use of this framework as you're filling out your application? But you'll go into the application website. You'll be able to see all of the questions on one page as you prepare your responses. I always like to encourage folks that it could make a ton of sense, and it does make a ton of sense for you to look at the short answer questions and have a Word document open so that you can create your response in the Word document and then copy paste it to the response, or excuse me, to the questions on the web page, just in the case that something goes awry and we don't receive your application. That way you're not having to rewrite everything, but you will need to create an electronic signature of just drawing your name in the box, just to make sure that we know that you understand what the training experience is and that you'll be able to participate in the training and the group work. So looking for your electronic signature there. And then, as I said, the short answer questions, there are 3 of them. There's a pretty high character count. Don't feel as if you have to do the whole thing, but do, add substantive responses so that the selection committee can get a feel for how you would be able to contribute to this training experience. So again, I would say that at most, this takes folks about 30 minutes worth of time to fill out. But please, please, please make sure that you have clicked that submit button. And what you should see after you receive the submit button is the screen will go back to the top of the page, the landing page. Scroll down, and there should be a message that says, your application has been submitted. You should receive an email with copies of your responses. If you do not see that confirmation, that means that we did not receive your application. And so that's one of the reasons that I really emphasize and encourage folks to fill this out in a Word document, because if you refresh the page before you submit, we don't get your submission. So you should receive an email from us that includes your responses. That is how you will know that your application has actually been submitted. But you're always welcome to contact us if you have any questions. So the application is now currently available. They're due March 28th. But as I said, in the case that you can fill it out sooner than March 28th, I'm sure that Julie and the selection committee would appreciate it. If you have any questions or have any challenges with the website, then please feel free to reach out to our team at workforce@uschamber.com. If you have any questions about how you might fit into the academy or who you should share this with, then Julie would be the best point of contact, and her email address is on the on the slide. But we're really, truly happy to help. So we'll be accepting folks on a rolling basis. It usually takes about 2 days or so for team members to review applications and respond, and then we can push out those acceptances. But everybody will be notified by April 8th of your acceptance into the academy experience. So I'm posting just a couple of commonly asked questions. I'll keep this up for a minute or two, and then just want to again see, are there any questions from you all that you would like to have answered during our time together? And we will send out a follow-up email to all of those who registered for today's webinar. That includes a link to the slides for today, the recording, and then again, just so that you have that point of contact in the case that you would like to ask us any questions directly.
Just thank everyone for attending today. We will be following up. We've got a contact list that we've kind of put together that will have the link to the application, some additional information that's been shared today, along with the dates of the session. So those will be in a space where everybody can see those. And again, just encourage everyone to share this information with those in your network. that could benefit. Again, we've got a lot of changes and good things happening across our region. And so we feel like this is a really good time for us to bring this training session and this collaborative approach to the work that we're all doing here across Go Virginia Region 3.
Thanks so much, Julie, and a huge thanks again to you and the implementation team for your collaboration and your interest in bringing TPM to the region. We're so excited. I think that, there is a ton of opportunity. As much as I knew, that some of the concerns that were brought up at the December workshop in terms of, how folks are thinking about talent strategy, it is always great to put a positive spin on it and be like, hey, this is just a tremendous amount of opportunity for the region. So the more helpful that we can be in, connecting you guys with partners who have experienced similar opportunities and just to kind of help you think what is the strategy that's going to work best for your region based on what you're experiencing, how your employers are coming at, talent strategies as part of their business strategy. We're all in to support you all. So please, spread the word far and wide. It can be really helpful to have multiple community members, from your specific region involved in the TPM effort so that you're coming at this with a collective mindset of like, how are we just going to get the work done, right? We know workforce development can be a really territorial space, but we find that those communities that are willing to collaborate, that are willing to think outside the box in terms of how we're going to get it done and connect people to great learning and training experiences, upskilling and reskilling opportunities, that those are the communities that are making great progress in creating that shared value in really meaningful ways. So we're excited to support you all, here to answer any questions that you have about the TPM Academy experience, and very much look forward to having you all participate in this learning experience with us.